Likutei Sicha is Chelek Yotes Haazinu Aleph, a fascinating Rashi Sicha that's going to take two separate Rashis that seem to be very similar and prove to us how in truth they are two very different Rashis, and will introduce to us the word Eidus, how Eidus could mean two different things. From Pasuk Haazinu Hashemayim is Rashi Mefarish, Shani Masra Behem BeYisrael, V'tiyu Atem Eidim B'Davar, Shakach Amarti Lahem, Shatem Tiyu Eidim. So the parsha begins, Haazinu Hashemayim, this is the Shiras Haazinu, a parsha in which, though it is written in a Shira style, in the style of a song, nevertheless it contains various different messages with regards to the importance of fulfilling Torah mitzvahs and the consequences of Chas v'Shalom not fulfilling Torah mitzvahs. So he says, why is he talking Haazinu Hashemayim? What is he telling to the heavens and the earth? I am warning the Yidden, and you are the Eidim, you are the witnesses. This is what I told them, that you will be the Eidim. So when it says V'sish Ma'aretz, it's the same thing. Hashem is telling the earth that you are the Eidim, that I told the Yidden, that I warned them. And why was there a need to warn the Yidden and to make the Shemayim v'aretz as Eidim, as witnesses? Omar Moshe said, "Ani basar v'dam, I am a human being. L'machar ani meis, tomorrow I may pass away. Im yemru Yisrael lekibalnu aleinu abris." If Yidden later in the later generations are going to come and say we never accepted this covenant, mibo makchisham, who's going to deny it? Who's going to contradict them and say yes, you accepted this bris? And therefore the Moshe Rabbeinu chose to use Shemayim v'aretz, heaven and earth, as witnesses, because they are forever. And at any time, in any generation, when people are going to come and say that we did not accept heaven and earth, we did not accept Torah, the heaven and earth will be witnesses that they did. And then Rashi comes and says a second pirush. If the Yidden are meritorious, the Eidim will come, the witnesses will come and give the reward. Hagefen titin pirya, the vine will give its fruit. Ve'aretz titin yuvula, the earth will give its produce. V'ashamayim itnu talam, the heavens will give the dew. V'im yischayvu, but if the Yidden are not meritorious, then tiya behem yad the Eidim tchila, and the Eidim will be the first to respond. The heavens will withhold the rain, and there won't be rain. So therefore, not only are the Eidim, are the heaven and earth witnesses that Moshe Rabbeinu and that the Eibishter and the Yidden accepted this bris, but they also will be there for the consequences. Hopefully positive consequences, and if necessary, the other consequences as well. Now, the hechrech of Rashi's pirush is bepashtos. Why does Rashi have to even say anything? What's bothering Rashi in the first place? Von die Wörter Haazinu Hashemayim is die Shemayim sollen herren, was lechede is a teichen von der Parsha nit mechuven zu Shemayim v'aretz. Why is he talking to the Shemayim v'aretz that they should hear if the intent or the intended of this Parsha is not Shemayim v'aretz, not to the Yidden? The Parsha is speaking to the Yidden. Wie sie darfen sich führen, how they have to conduct themselves. Und was wollen sein die Teitzois, sie wollen sich also nicht führen, how they should conduct themselves, and what are the consequences of not conducting themselves in this way. The Rebbe is Rashi Mefarish. As Moshe Rabbeinu gesagt zu Shemayim v'aretz, as sie sollen herren und sein Eidim, auf dem was says Master the Yidden. So Rashi is wondering, why is Hashem talking to the heavens and the earth if this parsha is intended for the Yidden? Rashi explains that the Shemayim v'aretz are the witnesses that Moshe Rabbeinu is warning the Yidden. And then he explains and why Shemayim v'aretz, and he explained because they're kayamim lad, because they're there forever, even in a time when Yidden will deny this bris. So we understand what's bothering Rashi. Why is Moshe talking to Shemayim v'aretz? And the answer is because they're the Eidim, they're the witnesses. But we're going to have a question or questions on this Rashi. And what's going to happen is that we're going to bring up that in Parshas Nitzavim, where it says the pasuk Ha'idoisi bachem hayoyim es Shemayim v'aretz, which seemingly means that I'm making today Shemayim v'aretz as Ha'idoisi, as Eidim, as witnesses, for this conversation, for this bris. And the question is going, and Rashi is going to have two pirushim there, and we're going to wonder why do we have to have the same thing twice, two pirushim in the Nitzavim, and again two pirushim in Haazinu. And therefore we verstehen, früher ist auf Parashat Nitzavim steht in Pasuk Haydeis b'chamayim v'shamayim v'sa'aretz. Previously in Parashat Nitzavim there's a pasuk that I made today, Edom, the heavens and the earth, and Eichtart there's Rashi mefaras v'pirushim. Also there Rashi gives two explanations. Number one, Shem Kayamim Lo'elam, they are there forever, they exist forever. And if something bad happens, they will be the witnesses that I warned you about all this. Then Rashi gives a second pirush. I made today heavens and earth as Eidim. Amar le'akadosh baruch hu Yisrael. David tells the Yidden, Histaklu b'shamayim shebarasi l'shamash eschem. Look at the heavens that I created to serve you. Shemashinu es midasam. Have they changed their function? Shema le'olah. Did the sun not rise at any time? Chulu, look how they are functioning properly and consistently. Look at these that have no reward for their doing the right thing, and yet they function and they continue to do everything that they should. You, who if you are worthy, you will receive reward. How much more so should you be functioning properly and consistently? So these are the two pirushim of Shemayim v'Aretz and Nitzavim. Number one, that they are Eidim, to remind you that you are warned about all of this. Number two, if you look up at the Shemayim, it will inspire you to do what you're supposed to, just as the Shemayim, as the heaven does what it is supposed to. Is nit muvam, but now that we understand that there's two pirushim in Nitzavim, in addition to the two pirushim in Haazinu in this parsha, this raises a number of questions. Aleph, Farvos fragt der Rasha lama heid beim Shemayim v'Aretz. B'shas man hat früher gelernt wegen der Redes von Shemayim v'Aretz und wegen der Tam. Farvos sie werden gestellt als Edom. Why does Rashi ask this question here? Lama heid beim Shemayim v'Aretz. Why did Hashem have the Shemayim v'Aretz be Edom? It already was discussed in Nitzavim. Number one, they're Eidim to remind you of what happened. And number two, when you look at them, it reminds you to do Torah mitzvahs. So why is Rashi asking this question again? Base. Secondly, Afilu as Rashi will me the tam sheyich in der parsha mefaras and them tam. V'vos shemayim v'aretz einen gestellt geworden als Eidos. Even if for some reason Rashi feels the need also in this parsha to explain to us why shemayim v'aretz were chosen as Eidos. Hat es gedacht schreiben bekitzer. He could have written it concisely. V'vos schreibt Rashi die Arichis in dem Inyan in der parsha, wo da steht im zweiten Mal. Why does Rashi elaborate in this parsha where this is being written a second time? Why does Rashi not elaborate in the first time when this is discussed on the pasuk Hayidaisi, where over there it's written concisely that they exist forever, and if something will happen, it will remind you that you were warned. So in Nitzavim, which is the first time it's mentioned, it's written concisely. And here, where it's the second time it's being mentioned, over here Rashi elaborates. So question one is, why B'chlal does Rashi ask the question? And question two is, if he has to answer the question, why does he elaborate here and not in Nitzavim? Gimel. Al derech zeh, darf men verstehen, ben agir dem zweiten Pirish b'Parshasenu. We have a similar question with regards to the second Pirush in our parsha. In other words, these first two questions were on the first Pirush in this parsha. The second Pirush in our parsha, which was telling us that the Eidim will be the ones to give the reward or the punishment. So Bishlam das was Rashi sagt in zweiten Pirush in Parshas Nitzavim. The second Pirush in Nitzavim belongs there. Und sagt es nicht to Parshasenu. And Rashi does not bring it here. It's moving, it's understood why. Rashi explained towards the end of Vayelech, where Rashi explains that in Nitzavim, Moshe is talking to the Yidden, and in Haazinu, Moshe is talking to Shemayim v'Aretz with regards to making them Eidim. So it's understood. Since Moshe in Nitzavim is speaking to Yidden, as macht Shemayim v'Aretz var Eidim, he's telling the Yidden that he's making Shemayim v'Aretz as Eidim. Aber nicht so Shemayim v'Aretz as his own sein Eidim. He hasn't yet told the Shemayim v'Aretz that they will be Eidim. The Mele is move on. As the Indian from Amalek Baruch Hu Yisrael, he's Tatlu B'Shemaim Shebarasi. So the second Pirush in Nitzavim, where Hashem is speaking to the Yidden to tell them to look up at the heaven, to remind them to do what they're supposed to do, is Masim Nadartan for person Nitzavim. So it fits in right over there in Nitzavim, as Yidden's on upland the Teichach of Shemaim V'Aretz, the Yidden should learn from Shemaim V'Aretz. So since in Nitzavim he's talking to the Yidden, so the second Pirush in Rashi there, which is Hashem speaking to the Yidden, fits in right there. So the second Pirush of Nitzavim, we understand why it's in Nitzavim and not here. In our parsha he's talking to Shemayim V'Aretz, so the fact that he's talking to Yidden doesn't fit in. Over the zweiten Pirush was Rashi's talking Parsha Seinu. But now if we were to look at the second Pirush of our Parsha, Shem Yisku Yavayedim Yitnu Scharam, that if the Yidden are deserving, then the Eidim are the ones that give the Schar. Pastach L'chor Eicha Parsha Nitzavim. It fits right in, just like it fits in here, it fits in there as well. In Nitzavim. Was Moshe sagt the Yidden, that Shemayim V'Aretz are in Eidim, when Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Yidden that the Shemayim V'Aretz will be the witnesses. So he could be saying more than that. That's B'shas Yidden Vel Zeicha Zayin. He could tell them in addition to that if the Yidden are worthy and are deserving, then the Yidden geben Scharim, and if Chas Shalom nit. If they are deserving, they'll get Schar from the Eidim, and if not, then they'll get the opposite of Schar. Hein farvos is Rashi does nit mefaras beim ersten Mal. Nor davke da, wo Moshe sagt on the Eidos Shemayim V'Aretz Atzman. So why is this Pirush not spoken, not told to us in Nitzavim? And why does Rashi wait till Haazinu to tell us this Pirush? So these are our three questions. Number one, why does Rashi ask the question Lama Heid Shemayim V'Aretz if this was already discussed in Nitzavim? Number two, if Rashi wants to elaborate, if Rashi wants to answer the question, why does he elaborate in this parsha and not in Nitzavim, which is the first time it's mentioned? And number three, the second Pirush of our Rashi, that the Eidim are the ones that dish out the consequences. Why does Rashi not mention that in Nitzavim, and why does he wait until Haazinu to mention it? Those are our three questions. Euch darf verstehen the Yukim in dem Pirush Rashi. Sif Beis is going to ask two nuances in the Rashi and Haazinu and our Rashi. Aleph. To leave Vos is Rashi Maidich Mefarish Akacha Marti Lem Shatim Tiyim Eidim. Why does Rashi have to elaborate and tell us that Moshe told Shemayim V'Aretz that he told the Yidden that they're going to be Eidim? Was ist denn negiert zum Idee sein Shemayim V'Aretz, as hat angesagt die Yidden, dass sie wollen sein Eidim? Why is it relevant to the Shemayim V'Aretz that the Yidden know that they're going to be Eidim? And we can't sagen, it's going to give us two suggestions and refute both of them. We can't sagen, as der Mitwert bavaron die Efsharius as Eden sollen nicht wählen as Shemayim V'Aretz on sein Eidim. You can't say that he's telling it to them so the Yidden shouldn't come and say that they don't want the Shemayim V'Aretz to be Eidim. From the Chedis, kinaf gemine nit var die Eides, der Musre is maskim of the Eides oder nit. Sie werden Eides bechalofen. Because seemingly, it's not relevant for the Eides, for the witnesses, whether the person being warned accepts their being witnesses. Either way, they become witnesses. So you can't say that the reason why Moshe is telling Shemayim V'Aretz Shekacha Marti Lehem is because we need the acceptance of the Yidden, because we don't. As is euch nit maspik der Tam as Asra helf nor b'shas der Musar Aveis as mis if he made Eidim. Nor can you say that the reason why he's telling this to them is because we need that the person being warned should know that there are Eidim. That is relevant. In other words, if a person is being given Hasara, he has to know that there are Eidim present that are warning him or that are watching the warning. Varum, but we can't say that that's why Hashem tells it to the Shemayim V'Aretz. Varum das is noch benegeh di Yidden. Because knowing that there are Eidim is relevant to the Yidden. Und die Yidden haben das schon gewusst, der Hashem sagt, gesagt, Parsha Nitzavim. And the Yidden already know that I daisi b'chem. Und nicht zu Shemayim V'Aretz, to the Eidim. But it's irrelevant to the Eidim, to which in this case are Shemayim V'Aretz, that the person should know that the Eidim exist. So again, why do Shemayim V'Aretz have to be told that the Yidden were told that they were the Eidim? That's one question. Beis, Lashon Rashi, in the wording of Rashi. Im Yemeru Yisrael lekibalnu aleinu habris, if the Yidden are going to say we didn't accept the covenant, miba umakrisham, who is going to contradict them? Farvah sagt in demselben Lashon ve'in Sifri lekibalnu aleinu es haTorah. Why does Rashi not use the Sifri, since these Pirushim in Rashi are based on the Sifri? Why does he not use the same wording as the Sifri? HaTorah, that we Yidden are going to say we didn't accept the Torah. Who's going to contradict them? As on Eidim Kivamakas and Kabbalah HaTorah Mitzvahs Bichlal, that without Eidim it's possible that Yidden are going to deny the receiving Torah Mitzvahs in general. Yet Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi just says, so what is the meaning of that word of Rashi? So we have three questions on the contrast between Nitzavim and Haazinu, and we have two questions on the wording of Rashi in Haazinu. In Siv Gimel, he's going to ask a question which is going to lead us into the entire answer. We'll understand all this by first introducing another question. This is mashma from the Rashi. Idos was Moshe Rabbeinu gesagt Eden, Aidesi b'chamayim es hashemayim v'sa'aretz in Sof Parashas Nitzavim. That which is, it seems to imply from Rashi that which Moshe Rabbeinu says in Nitzavim, Aidesi b'cham, und the Eidesh of Parashaseinu Haazinu hashemayim v'gomer is this albazach, and that Moshe Rabbeinu here is telling the Shemayim v'aretz that they are Eidim, seems to be the same thing, the same designation of Shemayim v'aretz as Eidim. Der Chelek is nor, and the only difference would be between Nitzavim and Haazinu. Rashi sagt, as Rashi himself says in a Rashi and Vayelech on the words V'hidabam, which are going to be brought up later in the Sikha. In Nitzavim, Moshe spoke to the Yidden, but hadn't yet told Shemayim v'aretz, heaven and earth, that they're going to be Eidim. The Achshav, and here in Haazinu, he's telling Shemayim v'aretz that they're going to be Eidim. Rashi in them pasuk, as Rashi himself says on our pasuk of Haazinu, that I told them that you're going to be the Eidim, and where was that? Seemingly in Haidoisi v'chem. But seemingly, if we look back, we'll see that it doesn't really fit this way to say that Haidoisi v'chem and Haazinu is the same event. Warum die Rede in Parashat Nitzavim, welcher Moshe Rabbeinu hat gesagt, Iden Haidoisi v'chamayim es Shemayim v'sa'aretz, is nicht das, was Shemayim v'aretz haben gehört, die Shiras Haazinu und geworden auf dem Eides. Because the words that Moshe speaks in Nitzavim, upon which he said Haidoisi v'chamayim es Shemayim v'sa'aretz, is not the same words that Shemayim v'aretz here in Haazinu, which is the Shiras Haazinu. It's different discussions. It's different words. So you can't say that it's the same designation of Eidos in Haidoisi v'chem and in Haazinu. How does Rashi imply that it's the same thing, telling us now that I already told you before that you are that I already told them before that you are the Eidim? When the Chelek is not Haazinu, that doesn't mean Shemayim v'aretz. The only difference is that now he's telling Shemayim v'aretz. If seemingly it's two different things, two parches, two discussions, and the Shemayim v'aretz are becoming Eidim now, and they weren't designated as Eidim in Nitzavim. So this is a major question. Is Haazinu and Nitzavim the same thing? Or not? And if it's not, then what does Moshe Rabbeinu mean when he says, Shekach amarti lem, that I already told the Yidden that you're going to be the Eidim? When did he do that? In Nitzavim, it's not the same Eidus as it is now. It's two different discussions. So that's where we're at. Before we can discuss the conscience of Nitzavim and Haazinu, or to understand the nuances in this Rashi, we have to ask a major question. We have to ask, is Haazinu and Nitzavim the same thing? And if it isn't, how does Rashi say, Shekach amarti lahem? And in Siv Dalet is going to give us the beer. And what he's going to do in Siv Dalet is he's going to introduce that Eidos doesn't always mean witnesses. Eidos could mean a symbol or a sign, a siman. And he's going to tell us that Haidoisi b'chem hayoim doesn't mean that Hashem made, or Moshe made the Shemayim v'aretz as Eidim, as witnesses. It means he made them as a symbol or a sign of this agreement. And he's going to say that there's two types of signs. One sign that is random, meaning to say it's just a random item that is being used arbitrarily as a sign, but not necessarily is it connected to the discussion or to the subject matter. There's another kind of sign that is connected to the subject matter that actually reminds you of the discussion that's being had. And then there's witnesses, which is a whole other discussion, and that's going to be for Haazinu. Sorry. The removal from word Eidos Kipsute is the simple meaning of the word Eidos. Psukim, as we might find in certain psukim, atzeichen, a sign, a simen lizikaron of a gewisse Sach, a reminder for a specific thing. Und das kann sein bekam this kind of symbol or reminder could be in two ways. Aleph, men stellt avek an Eidos as simen of a gewisse Sach. We designate a symbol, a sign for something. Aber die Sache, was wir macht für a simen, hat kein Scheiches nicht zum Teichen wingen von dem Summen. But the sign that's being made is not connected in any way to the thing that's being remembered. And the example would be from what we already learned with regards to Avram and Avimelech. Avimelech asks, what are these 7 sheep? Avram said to him, you'll take these 7 sheep from me, and this will be a sign that I was the one that dug this well. Was die Sheva Kvosses mit Sadatzmam, aber gescheiches nicht. Und seine Need came Bavais as Avram gegraben den Be'er. They're not, the 7 sheep are not connected to the well. Nor do they prove in any way that Avram dug the well. Nor Aaron Avimelech on Beidemaskim given, but there was an agreement between him and Avimelech. As die Sheva Kvosses einen Edus, and ois v'simen zu gedenken as gefartis verazes. But they agreed that these 7 sheep will be a sign and a remembrance that Avram dug this well. So point number 1 of this kind of edus, this kind of symbol or sign, is that it does not need to be connected to the subject matter. Another thing, azas sort edus v'simen darf nit sein kayam euch speter. Also, it doesn't need to last forever. It doesn't need to exist beyond the time of the actual agreement. Nor der mechuven von dem edus v'simen bleibt noch dem wie der simen wird bottle. But the intent of the agreement will remain after the simen ceases to exist. But the symbol itself does not have to continue to exist. As we would understand very simply, as the Sheva Kvosses haben nicht gelebt im ganzen Meshach Zman, was man gedarft haben an Eda, that these 7 sheep did not remain alive for the entire duration of the time that this symbol was needed. Even not the entire lifetime of Avram Avimelech, even though what they were symbolizing lasted quite some time, but the symbol itself ceased to exist after a while. The Ishkosas, they must have died. So there's 2 points. Number 1, that it doesn't have to be connected to the subject matter. Number 2, it doesn't have to last a long time. As long as it's there during the time of the designation of this agreement, and they are symbolizing the agreement, that's enough. Base. Then there's another kind of symbol, another kind of sign that symbolizes an agreement. As it edus v'simen avazach hatashaychas and teichen von der Zach, that the symbol represents or is connected to the subject. An example for this would be the mound of stones that Yaakov Avinu made as a sign between him and Lavan. As the pasuk says, Eid agalazeh, v'yeda amatzeva. That this mound of stones and this stone is a sign that I won't go over, I won't cross this mound to you, and you won't cross this mound to me. Das heißt, euch der Sug Eidos is narvi asimin v'zikaron af an inyan v'zayam ogret. It's also only just a reminder of what they agreed upon. But it's also connected to the subject. Gal von Steiner beweist auf eine Mechitze und Abschied zwischen beide Seiten. Because the pile of stones is a demarcation line or a separation between the two sides. So it also, if a person is walking, if Yaakov Avinu or Lavan is walking towards the other person's territory and they see the Gal, not only will they remember the agreement, but they'll also be shown how far they can go. So the sign is a reminder, but it's also a reminder that connects in idea to the agreement that was made. So you have two types of signs. One that is totally not connected, it's totally random. It's just a decision that two people made to use this as a symbol, like the sheep. And then you have another sign that would at least connect to the discussion, to the subject that's being had. Von dem is moving binyanenu. So now we can apply this to our discussion. When you learn the pasuk that I made you edim, wegen edus was ein nitkin basar adam, about edus that are not human beings. Is kinkashen it was is the teichen from the edus. We don't have to ask the question, what is the meaning of these witnesses? Or the vervos netmen dafke the edus, why are we choosing them specifically as edus? Because this was the agreement, that this was the item that was going to be used as the symbol of their agreement. So Rashi over here, the Rebbe over here is telling us that Rashi is teaching that Haidoisi does not mean a witness. Haidoisi means an aid of a siman, a sign of their agreement, and therefore there's no question why did he choose Shemayim V'aretz? Because a siman, in the first way, does not need to be connected to the subject. If Hashem chose, or Moshe Rabbeinu chose Shemayim V'aretz, and the Yidden agreed, then that's it. Then the agreement is made. Rashi is not mevayir v'asis kum the edus and siman. Rashi is just coming to explain to us what is the symbol representing. Not why is this the symbol, but what is the symbol representing. And he explains that if anything happens to you, then this is the sign that I read to remind you that I warned you about this. So this is a whole new twist, a whole new understanding of the word Haidaisi. Until we came to this point, we kept on saying Haidaisi means Eidim, witnesses. Now he says Haidaisi doesn't have to be witnesses. Haidaisi could mean a symbol or a sign. Shemayim V'aretz are a sign to remind us that we were warned. In the next paragraph, he's going to explain that we said in the previous column that the first ois does not have to last a long time. It only has to be there while the discussion is being had, while the edus is being designated. So he's going to say, why did Hashem choose Shemayim V'aretz? Why did Moshe choose Shemayim V'aretz? Why did he take something that was forever? So he's going to address that in the next paragraph. The fact that, and Rashi actually says that in Nitzavim, Shehem Kayamim Lo'ilam, that they were taking these edus because they are forever. Not the way it would be by a siman or a sign similar to the 7 sheep. Warum? Bei der Sheva Kvase, wie bald das ist gewesen, nur wenn jetzt so aber bestimmten Ort und Nord zwischen Avraham und Avimelech was am Achareim. By the Sheva Kvase, it was only relevant in that space, the space where the sheep were, where the well was, and also it was only between Avimelech and Avram and their offspring. It wasn't relevant to people anywhere in the world or to other times. It was Avimelech and Avram and their children. So once you have a sign in the moment of the agreement, then you'll remember the sign afterwards, even if the sign doesn't exist. But in our case of Haidaisi Bachem, this symbol is relevant to every Yid in every generation, in every time, and in all parts of the world. So therefore it's not enough for the Edus, for the symbol to exist during the designation of the symbol and during the agreement, because this same agreement is applies to us today. And that may have happened in the Midbar, and we're not in the midbar anymore. So we have to be able to see the siman at least once. So therefore, Moshe chose Shemayim v'aretz that are everywhere and at all times, because this siman is a little bit more complicated than the Sheva Kvasis. But it still doesn't bother us why it's Shemayim v'aretz, because it could still be a random symbol, a random sign that was chosen and agreed upon by both sides. So in the first Pirush of Rashi in Nitzavim, Rashi says, not why did I choose Shemayim v'aretz, but what did I choose them for? They are a reminder that you were warned, but why they were chosen doesn't matter, because it's only a siman, and a siman does not need to be connected to the subject at hand. Der Pirush is aber nitten ganzen glattig. However, this first Pirush of Rashi has a problem. When is it appropriate to say that a certain thing is an edus, is a sign and a reminder of a certain thing, which is totally disconnected from him, there's no connection? Then does Verta weggestellt at the Adon Lekavanazu as a line of siman. If it is appointed, if it is decided by the person and laid down, placed by the person for the purpose of being a siman, if you take a cup and you put it down over here and you say, I'm going to put this cup to remind me for whatever, then because the cup is here and not where it usually is, it's going to remind me of something. Bashemayim v'aretz aber, was von Shreishes Mebreses sein sehen dem in demselben Maimon du Matzev kiyamim leilam, das lecher neshaychev azefil. But Shemayim v'aretz didn't move. They weren't placed there by Moshe Rabbeinu. They weren't put in a certain spot by Moshe Rabbeinu. They're in the same place. So how does it serve as a reminder? Because it wasn't really designated for it. And nothing was changed in them as Moshe designates them. So how, if there was a connection, so the connection would remind me. But if the cup is here to remind me to drink, then the fact that I put the cup over here reminds me to drink, because the cup has a drink in it. But if there's no connection between the Shemayim v'aretz and the agreement that's being made, and the Shemayim v'aretz were not put here for this purpose, nothing was changed in them to make it the point of them being a siman, then how do they serve as a siman? The Rebbe is a Rashi zweiten Pirush, and this is why Rashi comes with a second Pirush. Davar achar chulu. Omalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael istaklu b'shamayim sheberasi l'shamash eschem. Look at the heavens which were created to serve you. Shemash shinos b'dosam, they never change their function. Ma'ilu shenasu v'chulu, just like they don't change their function, even though there's no schar involved. For sure, you who have schar should remember not to change your function. As the edus von Shemayim v'aretz is ba'ifin as mitzadin yonom, that is an eis v'simulas der mont und is ma'ir of kimaterim mitzvahs. When you look at Shemayim v'aretz, they remind you and they inspire you to fulfill Torah mitzvahs. So according to the second Pirush, Ha'idaisi is an Eidah in the second type of siman, the type of siman that is connected to the subject at hand. The Shemayim reminds us to keep Torah mitzvahs, and therefore there's no question that that no change was done. When zu der Eidus istaklu b'shamayim is considered it does was is ein verständig. In the brackets he adds, and doesn't matter that they're always here. Wie bald as a day istaklus is that they're teuchen zeder as leishinus v'dasman edus v'zikaron, because the memory, the reminder, is not from their existence but from what they represent. They represent something that serves Hashem at all times. So it reminds us to serve Hashem at all times. So therefore Rashi comes to the second Pirush to tell us that there's another way of looking at it, where the Shemayim v'aretz is connected to the subject at hand, and therefore the question that nothing changed by the designation is not a question, because we're not looking at their existence, we're looking at something about them that's connected and reminding us to keep Torah mitzvahs. In that case, you can ask, who needs the first Pirush? If the second Pirush, not only is it telling me that it's a siman, but it's a siman that's connected, why do I need the first Pirush? Li'idach, because I have a problem with the first Pirush. Sorry, I have a problem with the second Pirush, and that's why I need the first Pirush. Leitem zweiten Pirush is nit glatter vart hayoim. According to the second Pirush, the word hayoim, and it says hayidoisi b'chem hayoim, that word is problematic. Since the Shemayim v'aretz are the reminders. Through looking at the heavens, it reminds us to keep Torah mitzvahs, is doch der edus tamid b'shava. Then the edus is constantly the same. Then and now. and not specifically on that day that Moshe was designating them. According to the first Pirush, even if the Siman is relevant later, the designation was on that day. In a random Edus, then it's about the designation. It's not about how it works later, how it reminds me later, how it's connected to the subject. So in the first Pirush Hayom makes sense that this is the day that they were established as a sign. So Haydos B'Chamayom makes sense. But in the second Pirush, that I'm relying on the reminder, on the fact that it inspires me to do Torah mitzvahs, then it's relevant every day like it was relevant that day. And then in that case, why does it say Hayom? And therefore Rashi cannot use the second Pirush alone. He has to also use the first Pirush, because according to the first Pirush, Hayom makes more sense. So Ad Kan is the understanding of Haidosi, the two Pirushim in Rashi and Parshas Nitzavim. That Haidosi does not mean Eidus as in witness. Haidosi means Eidus as in sign and symbol. And the first Pirush Rashi is saying that Shemayim V'Aretz are not connected. They were just decided by Hashem to make Shemayim V'Aretz as a sign of their agreement. But then we had a question: how do they work? How does it work as a sign if nothing was done to them to emphasize that they're being a sign? Therefore, Rashi brings a second Pirush that Shemayim V'Aretz actually reminds us to do Torah mitzvahs. Now let's talk about Haazinu. And he's going to say that in Haazinu we can't say that it just means a sign. Sha'atim to you Eidim as a sign, because Moshe is speaking to Shemayim V'Aretz, and to a sign you don't have to speak to a sign. A sign doesn't have to know that it is a sign. And if Moshe speaks to Shemayim V'Aretz, it must mean that he's seeing them as real, actual witnesses. The common denominator between these two above-mentioned types of Eidos is Vosmen Darf Avdem Nitob and Dafka Mention Medaber, is that you don't need a human being to be the Eidos. It's not important, not necessary that the symbol should know that it's being a symbol. But in our Pasuk, where the Moshe Rabbeinu says to Shemayim, listen to me as I speak, and he says to the Aretz, hear as I tell the words of my mouth. But Moshe Rabbeinu zog to Shemayim V'Aretz as they zol heard, and where Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Shemayim V'Aretz that they should hear. You can't say that this is just a sign and a symbol. Because in that case it wouldn't be relevant that they should hear and know what's happening. That in this case in Haazinu it's actual witness on a specific event or conversation. The Rashi says that Moshe says to the Shemayim V'Aretz, you are the Eidim. They are in the category of actual witnesses. And therefore Rashi says, our first question was, why does Rashi ask V'lama Hayid if it was already explained in Nitzavim? So, but now it's a totally different question. In Nitzavim it was just a sign. In Haazinu, where he's actual witness, the question is, this is an Eidos Gemara, since this is actual witness, why does he take Shemayim V'Aretz as Eidim? And why didn't he take human beings to be witness everywhere else in Torah where it speaks about witnesses? The witnesses are people. So why over here is Moshe taking heaven and earth as real witnesses and not taking people? Now before we get to the answer, he's going to point out in the brackets that Rashi is not asking how could Shemayim V'Aretz be Eidim if they don't understand what's going on, because they do understand what's going on. The question is why? Why Shemayim V'Aretz are not people? Rashi in the brackets. Rashi fragt nicht Shemayim V'Aretz via Zekiel machen Shemayim V'Aretz for Eidim as Moshe Maskim and the Yidden. How could we make Shemayim V'Aretz as Eidim that Moshe warns the Yidden? Wie bald das eine nicht mit Dabrim und können nicht hören und verstehen, because they can't speak and they can't hear and comprehend. But Rashi in Bereshis, very interesting. Rashi in Bereshis says by the shoyin, by the grass, when Hashem created the grass, Afal Pisha Loi Nemar Limineu b'Deshoyin. Even though it doesn't say limineu that Hashem commanded the grass that they should grow by their species, b'tzivuyeyen shamu shenitztavu ilonos al kach. Sorry. Afal pisha lenemer limineu b'deshoyim b'tzivuyeyen. Shamu shenitztavu ilonos al kach v'noso kavachem b'atzmon. But the grass heard that when the Hashem created the trees, He said limineo that they should grow by their kind, by their species. So therefore, the grass understood, and they made a kal v'chomer that they for sure have to grow by their species. If the grass, the earth, is able to make such a deduction that if the trees have to grow limineo, then we for sure have to grow by our kind. So from this we know as bazei kol shekei b'shmayim v'oretz is shayach tini for shmiya v'avana that they're able to comprehend and understand and hear. The question is not why, is not how Shmayim V'aretz could operate as witnesses if they lack comprehension and understanding, because we know that they don't lack that, they have it. The question is, why choose them and not regular people? And to answer this question, Rashi continues. And this is the answer to the second question, why Rashi is being maidich over here, why Rashi is elaborating here, because Rashi has a question to answer. Why use Shemayim V'aretz as Eidim if we could use regular people? Oh, because Moshe said that I am not going to live forever. Since it's possible that a time will come when Yidden will say we did not accept this covenant, therefore we need Edom that will be around forever. They can contradict this argument that we'd never receive the Torah, we never receive the Bris. So therefore, Rashi elaborates over here, because now that we introduced that Shemayim V'aretz are real Edom, so we had a question, why use them and not people? We have to explain the situation that we need, in this case, we need Edom that will be around forever, so that there should never be a time that someone could deny the fact that we received and accepted this bris. Es ist aber nicht verstandig, but there's still something that's not understood. Wie bald sie sein in ein Edus Gemurah. Was die Iker Mechumen von einer Edus ist doch nicht nur, dass sollen wissen wegen dem Dibur oder dem Ura, nur sie sollen später Meid sein und damit uften ab Ula in der Minion. Since they're real Edom, so then it's not enough that they should know, be aware of the event or be aware of the discussion that's being had, but they have to later testify about it and have an impact on this on this thing that they're witnessing. In that case, how does that possible? Even if they understand what's happening, how are they going to be involved later in the implementation of what this Edus is about? Therefore, Rashi adds v'oid, and look in this in the parentheses over very important. Nid kein zweiten pirush. This is not a second pirush. In the beginning, we thought this was a second pirush. This is not a second pirush in Rashi. No, not teisvis oid. Biur. The word oid, additionally, is telling us there's an extra explanation in the Edus of Shemayim V'aretz in the first pirush that we're talking about the witnesses of Shemayim V'aretz. And we say, in addition to that not only are they witnessing it, but also Shem Yisku Yavayu Edom Yitnu Scharam, that if the Yidden will deserve it, will be deserving, the Edom will give the reward. The Edom come first to punish them, as the pasuk says. What says Shemayim? Thus haste as the Shemayim V'aretz and Edom Gmurim. Shemayim V'aretz are complete Edom. Nit nur auf Herren die Asra of Eden, not just to hear the warning to the Yidden, wissen sie auf Mekayim wenn sie nicht, and to know, to observe whether they fulfilled that which they were supposed to or not. They can also be involved and affect as Edom in this thing that they are witnessing by implementing the punishment or the reward. So they have both aspects. They're hearing or they're seeing what's going on. They can watch and see how the Yidden react, and they can actually react to that by giving them the consequences. So by this second pirush, which is not really a second pirush, it is really an extension and elaboration of the first pirush. We understand this idea of Edom Gmurim. They are complete Edom. They're being chosen because they're around forever, so they can always be there to deny the argument that we never accepted this covenant. And they're also involved in the in the second half of Edis by implementing the reward or the punishment if the Yidden, whatever the Yidden deserve. So we now understand the two pshatim in Ha'idoisi are two levels in a siman, and the two pshatim in Rashi in Haazinu, it's really one pshat telling us that the Eid, Shmayim Varetz are real Eidim, and they're involved in every aspect of this Eidus. Alpia now that we understand, and this is the ultimate nekuda that Haazinu means Eidus Gemura, that when in verstandig echt the Ibra dik Yukim will be able to understand also the other questions that we had in Rashi. Since this pasuk is introducing a new concept, that Shemayim Varetz are real Eidim, is the Chener from the Kavanas from Geben Hasrab from the Eidim. Nicht nur wich they kennen better meine sein. One of the reasons that we want to warn the person in front of Eidim is not just so that we could be able to punish the person later on, nor as their musers all wissen und vielen Chemer adavar, also that the person being warned should recognize the severity of this thing, und soll ihm aufhalten von and it should stop him from doing this undesirable thing. This is when Moshe tells the heavens and earth that they should hear the testimony, they should hear the warning, and they should be the witnesses. There is a major detail missing here. We need the Yidden to know about this. Warum? Das, was früher hat Moshe gesagt, the fact that Moshe said Haidaisi is not Eidus. As when is only a sign. So the fact that Moshe said Haidaisi does not mean that Shemayim Varetz are Eidim. So the question is, how can the Shemayim Varetz serve as Eidim if the Yidden don't even know that they're Eidim? Therefore Rashi adds the words that I told the Yidden that you Shemayim Varetz are going to be the Eidim, and this is the answer to the first question in Siv Beis. Why you ask us? Because we need to know that the Yidden know about this in order for them to derive the benefit of the Eidim, that it'll hold them back from doing what they shouldn't do. And if you remember, in Siv Beis we asked that if they didn't have to know about it, they already know about it from Ha'idoisi, but they don't, because now that we understand that Ha'idoisi is a simin, so they don't know that the Yidden that Shemayim Varetz are Eidim Gemurim, real Eidim. So therefore Moshe has to say to them, Moshe has to say to the Shemayim Varetz, the Yidden do know about this. I told them. Where did he tell them? Ermein der mit, and what does Moshe mean by this? Moshe is not referring to Ha'idoisi, because as we explained at length, Ha'idoisi is not Eidus. Nor their pasuk va'ida bam es Shemayim v'sa'aretz v'saf parasas vayelech. Moshe is referring to the pasuk at the end of parasas vayelech, where he says va'ida bam, I will make Eidus as Shemayim v'sa'aretz, the heavens and the earth. Was dort not der gesagt Eden as macht Shemayim v'aretz v'eidim gemurim. That's where he tells the Eden that Shemayim v'aretz are going to be the real Eidim. U'meila is moving the tiyelus sepulu from them Shemayim v'aretz and Eidus of the Rasra. So now we understand the benefit and the impact of the fact that Shemayim v'aretz are Eidim, how that affects this warning. People that's even based from them. You didn't know about it because Moshe told them Va'idabam, and therefore Moshe tells Shemayim v'aretz that I told them by Va'idabam that you're going to be the Eidus, and now they get the full benefit of it. If we have to punish them, we have witnesses that saw the warning. More importantly, the fact that they know that they were warned will hopefully hold them back from doing the Aved, or not doing what they shouldn't do. The only problem we're left with is that the question that we asked in Siv Gimel is intensified. We are now making the difference between Nitzavim and Haazinu even greater. In Siv Gimel, we were saying that Nitzavim is talking about Nitzavim, and Haazinu talking about Shiras Haazinu. They seem to be two different things. Now we took it even further. We now said that they're two totally different things. Haidaisi is not even Eidus, and this is Eidus Gemura. So the disparity between Nitzavim and Haazinu just got even bigger. Later, Shemayim Varetz emes Eidim. Not of them was as very gesagt in Parashas Haazinu, because according to this, the Ashmayim Varetz are only Eidim for what is spoken in Haazinu. Oh, but after them was Moshe, when I'm talking to Eden, Parshat Nitzavim, saying they need to create the Mamish. But that which Moshe spoke about in Nitzavim, the Shemayim Varetz are only a siman, only a sign, not Eidim. So how does that work? Is there beer b'zeh? In Parshas Nitzavim, Zak Moshe, Haydei Sebechamayim is a Shemayim Varetz in Achayim v'Maves v'Geimar v'Bacharta v'Chayim Anticha v'Tezrecha. I placed as a sign today heaven and earth. I gave you life and death. You should choose life so that you should live and your children should live. Hainu, as the Eidos da'art is b'negia kima teirav mitzvahs b'chalal. When the Schar Beinis would say that over there Shemayim Varetz are a sign for the general fulfillment of Teirav mitzvahs. Unav dem darf nicht kineitem. Das ist überhaupt nicht talking chashash as Eden don't spread their makkes in dem ganzen Inyan von der Sinnes of Teirav mitzvahs. We don't need Eidim about Teirav mitzvahs. There's no concern generally that Yidden are going to deny that the Eibusher gave the Teirav. Das ist bevor some dicke Sach, was alle Yidden wissen, und es geht immer mit der. This is a very famous thing that everybody knows about and is passed on from generation to generation. Und der Riber ist auf dem Maspek an Eidos alles für Simen. Therefore, all you need is a sign. As we ständig gedenken gegen Teiro mitzvahs, and the main is also that we should always remember about Teiro mitzvahs and the punishment that awaits us. Und late die zwei Fanim from the Tveit Perush Rashi and the two different aspects, the two different ways within the Rashi in Haazinu, either in Nitzavim on the words Ha'idoisi, either that if something happens, we should know that we were warned, or that we should learn from Shemayim Varetz to inspire us to keep on doing what we're supposed to do. But in our parsha, we're not just talking about the idea, the main importance, obligation of fulfilling Torah mitzvahs. Not on how the divrei habris, but it includes the words of the covenant. But in them, which contain many details. Now, the truth is, even Torah mitzvahs has many details. But in Nitzavim, he's talking about choose life. The very acceptance of Torah mitzvahs as a concept, as a one thing, though that one nekuda, as long as I have a sign to remind me that I have to do Torah mitzvahs and I shouldn't, and there's punishments awaiting for me, I'm good. But when you get to Haazinu and there's various different details which need to be remembered, there might be a possibility that someone would deny the whole bris. Not going to deny Torah, but to deny the bris, which is an aspect within Torah, that's possible. Even the second way that we're reminded, we're inspired to do Torah mitzvahs, it doesn't help a siman. A reminder can remind you about the whole general concept. But it's not going to remind you about all the details. Especially since the whole thing could be denied. So there's two aspects over here. Number one, it is possible to deny the bris. Number two, the bris is made up of details. Person puts a red string on his finger to remind him to do something. So it's going to it may remind him of the idea, but it's not going to remind him all the details. He has to write down the details. He has to make a to-do list. There has to be, or ask someone else to remind him of the details. It's not enough to have a siman just to remember all the details. And therefore, for the bris, you need to have actual edim. Which they hear all the details of the warnings. And they are edim for it. And then they actually fulfill this testimony in actuality. And so this answers the question, the second question in Sif Beis, why Rashi uses the word habris, not ha-Torah, because there's no chashash that Yidden are going to deny the Torah. But there is a chashash that they're going to deny the bris, and that's why we have edim gemurim, so that there should be edim for the bris that it shouldn't be denied, and that all of the details should be remembered and documented. So now we've come to the conclusion of understanding these two Rashis, how we started out thinking they were the same thing. Shemayim Varetz are Edim, and it turns out that they're two totally different things. Ha'idoisi is a siman. Either a siman to remember what was warned, or a siman that inspires us to act, and reminds us to do Torah mitzvahs, but that only works for Klolos HaTorah v'Hamitzvos. In Haazinu, he's talking about Divrei Habris, which we need for that Eidus Gemura, and therefore we have to have, Moshe designates them as real witnesses, and they're involved in every aspect of the testimony, and every aspect of this agreement, and therefore Haazinu and Haidaisi is two totally different things. And therefore Rashi has to give two pirushim in Haidaisi, has to give again two pirushim which are really one pirush in Haazinu, and the two are two totally different things. Now that we understand this concept of Eidus Gemura, at least as much as we do, we're going to be able to explain a couple of more things in Rashi from the perspective of halacha. From the inyanim ufloim al derech halacha in the Pirush Rashi, from the amazing things that will affect halacha or be affected by halacha in this Rashi. Why does Rashi not quote V'tishma ha'aretz from the pasuk? Since both Shemayim and Aretz are Edim, why does Rashi not include V'tishma ha'aretz in his Dibur HaMaskeh? That does I verstandig alpi and under Shaila, this will be understood by introducing another question. Now that we understand, based on the way we explained the Sikha, that Shemayim Varetz are actual real Edim, that something is established according to two Edim, as the zwei Edim darf sein zusammen. In demselben Eufen, the two Edim have to come together and experience this in the same way. Wer doch die Shaila? So Shemayim hat Moshe gesagt Haazinu, und so Eretz v'tishma. The question becomes, when Moshe spoke to Shemayim, he said Haazinu, which as we know Haazinu means close. To Eretz is v'tishma, which means from far. They're two separate Edim. So how could they join forces to be Edim? Now, if they were just a sign, or if they were just a representation of the idea of witness, fine. So Shemayim, you have Aretz, is good. But if you're their Eidus Gemura, if they're actual Edim, you need two Edim, and you need two Edim that are coming together. Here you have a Haazinu, here you have a Tishma. How do they merge to become a pair of Edim? Now, if you're coming from the aspect of drush, steht in Sifri, we can answer it differently, because the Sifri says, when Edim give testimony, if their words are aligned as one, then we sustain their Edus. But if their witness, their testimony is not aligned, then their Edus is not sustained. If Moshe had just said Haazinu Hashemayim and not said anything else, Shemayim would say, we didn't hear with Shema, we heard with Haazinu, with Haazana. Then he says, V'sishma ha'aretz. If he just said V'sishma ha'aretz, ha'isa ha'aretz emeres le'shomati le'b'shmiya. The Aretz would say, V'sishma, I did Shmiya, but I didn't do Ha'azana. It's two different types of hearing. We said before, Haazinu is from close, Shmiya is from far. So you only have a half a job. Bo Yeshaya. So therefore comes Yeshaya. V'samach ledavar shimu shamayim v'hazini eretz. He says shimu for shamayim and hazini for eretz. Litin hazana ushmiya l'shamayim v'hazana ushmiya l'eretz. So that both shamayim and eretz should have both hazina or hazana and shmiya. So from the perspective of drush, it's not a problem because both shamayim and eretz had both hazinu and shmiya. Rashi brings the Stachaber Nitarab, but Rashi doesn't bring this pirush of the Sifri that Yeshaya is the completion, so to speak, of what Moshe says over here. Under tam der fun is moving with an obvious reason, but on the feast of Kumto it says Bistem is bound from Yeshaya. That they need to give Enkinedes Mechuvenes, because that would imply that until the time of Yeshaya they were not aligned as an Edus. Based on past such Suvin does Mechuvenes, and over here from our Psukim it's mashma that they became Edus right away. So therefore Rashi doesn't rely on this pirush of the Sifri. So we have a question: how do Shemayim v'Aretz serve as Edim if they're coming from two different places? Literally, Shemayim is up there and Aretz is down here. The Rebbe is Rashi might ignore the Verter Haazinu Hashemayim. Therefore, Rashi quotes the words Haazinu Hashemayim. Uzak v'tiyu atem edim b'davar lashon rabim. And Rashi says that you, in the plural, will be the witnesses. Hashemayim alein zayin edim lashon rabim. that Shemayim themselves are the Eidim in the plural. As we've learned numerous times, that there's more than one heaven. So therefore, when he says you should be the Eidim, he doesn't mean Shemayim and Eretz. He means two Shemayims will serve as Eidim. Then Rashi adds, and so too V'sish Ma'aretz, as Eich Eretz is a kat Eidus b'fnei atzmai, that also the Eretz is a collective of Eidim on its own. When Eich Tos is an Inyan Yadu, also this is known. But from Eretz is Kelot Sendlik Ha'aratzis. Eretz could include various different lands. Eretz could mean earth, as in planet Earth. But Eretz can also mean a land. There's many lands, or many land masses that exist on this planet. So Eretz could mean that there's more than one Eretz. Therefore you have aligned witness, aligned testimony. Shemayim Eretz are two groups of Eidim that each one have two Eidim, or at least two elements within each one that give Eidus. So in other words, now that we understand that the Shemayim V'Aretz are operating as Eidus Gemura, we understand that Shemayim V'Aretz didn't merge as one group of Eidim, but Shemayim is one group and Aretz is another group, to be able to fulfill the idea of Al Pi Shnei Eidim, Yakum Davar, that both Eidim should be aligned. Another halachic relevance that we have in Rashi. Verstehen, wie sagt Moshe wenn Haazinu Shemaim V'Dabeira. V'tish Ma'aretz Mirifiu und damit macht er sie Veredim. Von wann ist die Reihe, als sie willen werden Eidim afiden, und meine seien sie im Yischaivu. Another question that we have: where do we see that the Yidden, that the Shemayim V'Aretz agreed to be Eidim? And you have to agree to punish the Yidden later on. Where do we see that they accepted this? Is Rashi dos merames mit diverter? Rashi hints to this with the words Shekacha marti lam shatim to you Eidim, that I told them that you're going to be Eidim. Und das wird sein Musberu behaktim. This will be explained as follows. Was bei Eidus von Sof Parshas Nitzavim steht nicht, dass sie gewinnen ha'akolam yichedes von Eidim. By Ha'idoisi doesn't anywhere say that there was a gathering, specific gathering, to turn Shemayim V'Aretz into Eidim. Mashekin is Sof Parshas Vayelech wo steht Va'idam Shemayim V'Aretz. But in the end of Vayelech where he says Va'idam V'Mazveren Eidim Mamish, and that they're actually becoming Eidim, like we explained earlier. State, the way the pasuk introduces it is Hakilu Elias Kol Ziknei Shiftechem V'Shitrechem. Gather to me the elders of your tribes and your officers. V'Adabra B'Ozneim, and I will speak into their ears. Es Advarim Eila, these words. V'Idabam, and I will make as witnesses heaven and earth. What's the difference? Why in Nitzavim do I not have a gathering, and in Vayelech I do have a gathering? But this is the reason. Because Moshe wanted to turn Shemayim V'Aretz to Eidim into real witnesses. Therefore gathered the elders of the tribes and the officers, which were the members of the Sanhedrin and the Bezdin. And Bezdin has the power to affect that Shemayim V'Aretz should become the Eidim. Nochmer, the Eidim Zere is doch gewähnt nicht nur auf die Asra. Nur ich möchte die Meid sein auf sie, Tomer, sie will makrisch sein. The Eidos is not just to be able to hear the warning, but also to be able to testify later in case there is a denial. To the point that sometimes they may have to be asked to actually implement the consequences. Rashi is mamshich. Beside the Eidos sagen von the Eidim, ubefrat das Ausführen dem Psak, if the Eidos are going to say testimony, and certainly if they're going to implement the consequences, it has to be done by a Bezdin. So therefore Rashi says, I told them that you're going to be the Eidim, but through this, that I told them that you're going to be Eidim, by gathering a Bezdin, they became an Eidus Gemura, the Bezdin through the Bezdin. So now that they're an Eidus Gemura, it answers the question, how do they become Eidim? It answers it by telling us that there was a Hakilu Elai, there was a gathering. What was the purpose of the gathering? Moshe was gathering the members of Bezdin so they could appoint the Eidus and empower the Eidus that they could be Eidus, and they could say testimony if they have to, and they can implement the punishments or the consequences if it becomes necessary. So there's two aspects in halacha here. Number one, that Shemayim v'Aretz have to be separate edim because they have to be aligned. It has to be divrei mechuvanim, and also that they became edus through Bezdin, because only Bezdin, if we don't know if the Edim accepted the role of being Edim, then we have to know that Bezdin appointed them. And also when it comes to implementing the consequences, it has to be done with the power of Bezdin. See, if when Yena Shalteira and Pirish Rashi, now we come to the Yena Shalteira, the deeper aspect of what Rashi is telling us. The Tam Pnimis and Yonimus in Parshat Nitzavim. Is maspik edus al sasim v'zikaron. Masha'enkim in Parshas Haazinu when they get the bris have another nedus gemara. Why is it that in Parshas Nitzavim when he speaks about Torah mitzvos b'chlal, all you need is a sign and a reminder, and in our parsha when there's a bris, you need to have a complete, full-fledged edus. Yesh lever we can say as follows. When it comes to the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs, it's not possible that a Yid should deny or should deliberately not fulfill Torah mitzvahs. There is a spirit of shtus inside of him, and a person thinks, he imagines that he still is connected to Hashem. He's still part of his Yadus, of his Yiddishkeit. So he's making a mistake. He thinks something that's not true. And therefore, all you need is a sign, a reminder, and that'll bring you back. No, it doesn't work like that. If you do an Aveda, you do an Aveda. And this is actually in two aspects. Number one, if something bad happens, you'll be the Edim that I warned you about this. It says the Edim, they're monin, as the that the bad that's happening is because of the lack of the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. And reminds him that an Aveda separates him from Elokus. And the second definition is in the positive, that the Shemayim V'Aretz, the heavens themselves, remind or inspire the person to fulfill Torah mitzvahs. In other words, when you're talking about Torah mitzvahs in general, a Yid wants to do it. Sometimes a Yid has a ruach shtus and he thinks that it doesn't matter. So Hashem puts Shemayim V'Aretz, a reminder that if something bad happens, you should know that you're distancing yourself from Hashem through an Aveda. And you should know, if you look Shemayim V'Aretz, it'll inspire you and remind you to serve Hashem. In our parsha, where it's talking about a bris, but a bris is the place of kimatera b'peil. A bris is not just about the fulfillment of Torah in the actuality, nor beikir avayis chaskus yeseda and kimatera mitzvahs medal pratim. It's more about an extra strengthening in the various different aspects of Torah mitzvahs. Some of them did maspik asim v'ois. No medarf haban an edus gemura. For here, for this is not enough a sign. You need to have a full-fledged testimony, a full-fledged edus. What's the reason? To fulfill this covenant, to strengthen oneself in the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs, it's by awakening and revealing the power of Mesiras Nefesh that exists by a Yid. And the revelation of the power of Mesiras Nefesh of a Yid, this happens through edus. The Inyan from edus is with the Alter Rebbe in Mevar Baruch. The Alter Rebbe explains in the Likutei Torah at length that edus is of a davar an nelam, and something that's concealed. You don't know, you need to have a witness and come to tell you what it is. Oh, but if a davar an nigla, definitely when it's nishayach in edus, something that everybody sees, that's revealed to everyone, you don't need edus. No one has to come and tell you edus that the sky is blue, because everyone knows it. It's revealed to us. Even something that right now I can't see, but it's going to become revealed. It is going to be exposed. You don't really need an edus gemura because first of all, people don't lie about it. Something that's going to become revealed, no one lies about it. And even if it's not being spoken about, but in due time it'll be revealed, and you don't need an edus for it because it itself will become revealed. Eidus is dafka v'adavar hanel l'gamri. Something that is totally concealed and does not have the potential of becoming revealed. That's when you need Eidus. And dafka durch Eidim wird die Sachen is gala, and the Eidim are the ones who reveal the details of this thing. Someone does something and no one sees, and it was hidden from everybody, but the Eidim saw. The Eidim will expose what happened. So the Eidus applies to something that is totally concealed. Und der Riber, auf Begalas an dem Keach HaMesiris Nefesh, was nimmt sich von Yechidish B'Nefesh, was the Davar HaSosum, to be able to reveal and expose the Keach HaMesiris Nefesh, which originates from the Yechidish B'Nefesh, which is totally concealed, Hecher von Gila Legamri, entirely higher than revelation. That from Hobanei, this Gemara, you need the idea of Eidus, which has the power to reveal something that's concealed. So the idea of Eidus Gemara will reveal the hidden Keiches of the Yechidish B'Nefesh, which reveals the Kayach HaMesiris Nefesh of the person, and this gives the person the Kayach to strengthen himself, and extra strengthening in the various different details of Torah mitzvahs, and therefore for the bris there had to be Eidus Gemura to be able to give him an extra chizuk.